Welcome to Wire Guild. The tutorial that we're going to be doing today I call the two hearts as one pendant, and you'll see why in a moment. It's because it's a pendant that's made up of two heart shapes. Now many people have said to me, do a heart tutorial because hearts are hard to make. They're not, they're really easy. I'm going to show you a knack that means you'll have proper hearts all the time. So there's your materials. We've got 14 gauge, 18 gauge and 24 gauge, as well as four 4mm beads. Now the beads I happen to have used are rubies, but anything, I do like red, I must admit. So this is my 1.6mm wire, which is of course rather difficult to use. You're going to have to use a cloth to rub this out, but don't worry too much. You can see mine's got little lumps and bumps in, and I've got about 7 inch there, and then I've got about 3.5 inches of 1mm. I've got my fine stuff and I've got my little rubies. So we'll move all these out of the way and we're going to start with the big stuff. So 7 inches of very thick wire, and I'm gripping it at the 3-inch point. So one side's 3 inch and one side's 4 inch, and I'm going to bend. So pliers on, nice firm pliers. This is thick, heavy gauge wire, and I'm going to bend and bend. Don't go all the way over because you'll have the shape of the pliers in the end. And then I'm going to put the pliers over the top, and I'm going to try and squeeze this together. Now it's slithering and slipping. Just move my ring out of the way. Now if we put a cloth over the top of it, this very rarely allows you to tighten it, but it does mean that you can squeeze a little bit harder and it doesn't mark the metal in any way, especially when you're working with copper, which marks so easily. But I can just do some more squeezing on there. Then when I open it, we see it's nearly there. It's not quite done, but it's nearly there. And then the pliers over the top and just gentle, there we go, see better now, gentle pressure, and close that all the way down like that. Okay, so now I'm going to open it up a little bit. Now when you open it, it always sort of twists one up, one down. So open it a little bit, put your pliers on, and then just slide your thumb in between that gap, and then you can just ease those sides open, and you see that you've got the bottom point of your heart already. Now I'm going to show you how to make the top two sort of rounded bits. I can't think of a name for them. Domed bits. Anyway, so I'm using this actually is a ring display, but anything that is a nice sort of largish round shape, lipstick tube, possibly the very end of your ring mandrel, and I'm just bending one way and one the other. So when I take it out, I've got like a teardrop, upside down teardrop. And then when you get hold of one side and hold of the other and pull them apart, you have a perfect heart shape, which is great. So the long end is going to come up and be my bails. So I'm going to grip just there with my pliers. Now the line of my pliers is crossing the line of that other wire, so that as I bend, it's going to go exactly where I want it, because it is thick wire, so you do need to make life, you know, as simple as you can. So using the pliers as sort of a stop, I'm just gradually bending that wire around the other one. Now I've bent it up slightly, so I'm just going to bend those back in a little bit because I was losing the heart shape slightly, and then over the top and just close them down there. Now you can see a little bit that's sticking out the bottom. We're going to turn that into a loop. Now pliers on, grip and turn. Now then, I'm using wubbers, so they will attack such a heavy gauge of wire. If you don't have any wubbers, or you don't have this gauge of wire, don't make it this thick. Make it with something slightly thinner. You could probably get away with anything as thin as sort of 18 gauge or 1mm wire. So let's just straighten that up. I do love the chunkiness of this very thick wire. So straighten those up, and I'm putting my pliers over the top, and I am really squeezing as hard as I can. That's why I use two hands. So that is nice and stationary now. So I've got my wire going upwards, which is going to make my bails, so I'm just going to decide which side I like best to make the front. I think I'll have that one. Right, so I'm going to turn this away from the front, so I'm going to go all the way around, quite a decent sized loop, because these look really pretty on ribbons. Not quite flat, pliers over the top, straighten it up. Now my pliers are going to go in, and I'm just going to bend that loop slightly forward so it sits, can you see, halfway, half at the front, half at the back. Lovely. Now just make sure it's straight. Right, now you could at that point leave it. This is one of these great pendants where you can stop at sort of any stage, however I'm not going to. So this is my 1mm wire, and I've taken it and I'm just bending it in half, exactly the same way that we did with the first heart, just nowhere near as difficult because it's only 1mm or 18 gauge. And pliers over the top, squash that down, open it, but because it splits wrong, put your pliers over, straighten those wires out, and then push your finger down. Now to make a heart out of this, obviously that same size ring thing that I used to make the curves over the top is just too big, far too big. I need something much smaller. It's a much smaller heart. Now I've got a pen kicking around here somewhere, but I think that's too big as well. It's quite fat, so we're not going to use that. I'm going to use my pliers, and I'm going to use the very, very thickest end of the pliers. Normally I prefer to use a pencil or something, but you can do it with pliers, and I'll show you how. I'm going to wrap one way with one wire, like that, and then I'm going to put the pliers back in and bring that straight one up into the centre, and then wrap that the other way. Obviously if I'd have had a pencil that would have been easier, it's just with having two jaws on pliers. And then hold one side, hold the other side, and split them apart, and I've got a little tiny heart now that will dangle inside my bigger heart. I'm just wriggling it. There we go, you see that will dangle there. So let's cut some of this off because I don't need all that, and then with my pliers I'm going to bend that so that's going down. This one needs to come inside, so just bending the end and then easing the wire back because I need to get it back up through the middle of the heart. That's it, in you go. Now I'm bending at the point where it crosses the other piece of wire at the top of the heart. Remember, just like we did on the other one. And then I'm going to bend this wire upwards. There we go. It's just slightly easier because the wire's not as thick. So I'm just straightening the wire with my pliers and pressing that down. Okay, so that other piece of wire is a little bit long to make a loop with, so I'm just going to trim some of it off. I'm just moving it so that I don't trim the wrong bit. There we go, I can just get in easier. It's always best to make life as easy as possible. If that means moving a bit of wire, move a bit of wire. There we go. So that's my loop in that one, and I need to make a loop in the top. Now I've probably got too much here, but a good knack is just to go round and round and round and round at the size you want, and then trim off your excess. That way you get a lovely round circle. I'm just trying to find a way where you can see what I'm doing. There we go, I'm going at the side there. Can you see? Just on that side, that's it, nip it off. So I've just left with a lovely little loop, and that little loop will attach into my heart. Now I'm going to just open it sideways slightly, and obviously I need to open it sideways a lot more because it's thick wire, sorry about that, and loop that in there. That's it. Now you see, normally I wouldn't attach the heart at this point, I would wait until I'd finished, but I want you to see that you can stop at this point, so that's why I'm attaching it now. Normally and I would suggest that if you're going to add the beads to it the same as I have, you don't actually attach this heart at this point. You hang on a minute. I'll tell you later on when to attach it on, but I want people to see that at that point they can stop if they want. So you just got 2 little hearts, because some people don't like beads and extra bits, they just like the beauty of sort of plain metal. So I've got these little tiny ruby faceted beads. I'm just going to take one of these off. There we go. And my fine bit of wire, at the 26 gauge or 0.4mm, I'm just going to take myself a small amount, probably, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and just bend it. It's so fine that you can't really make it into a head pin. I mean, if you had a little head pin this size on a fine wire, I'd suggest you use that, but I don't have one handy, so I'm going to do it this way. Because it's so fine, you can't really make it into a head pin. So if you fold it at the 3rd point, and I'm just going to grip across the bottom of the loop and then wrap the wire in sort of a spiral around the bead. Now your bead will pop up, but that's alright, because all you do is you push it back in, and then you can just wrap around the upright stem with your piece of wire. There we go. What it does is it stops the bead dropping off the bottom. It looks quite attractive as well, because you get this little tiny line of metal going up over the bead, which is rather nice. I've wrapped around sort of 2, maybe 3 times there. I think I'll go around again. You just have to be careful not to bend that upright stem, because it's such thin wire, it's quite delicate. So I'll trim that off, and I'm going to press the end down. Now this is why if you're putting this bead on, you don't add the little hearts, because it's easier to attach when it's free rather than attached to the other one. But there it goes. So I'm going to make a little loop in the end of this and wrap that over. Now it's quite close to the bead, because we want the bead to dangle inside that heart. So I'm just going to wrap that through. There we go. And then this is why it's easier to do if you don't add the heart, but anyway, wrap that through, and then take your wire and wrap it around above the bead so that the whole thing's locked into place. There we go. I'm going to go around, I don't know, probably twice. I'm just pressing that down, just enough to make sure that it doesn't come off. So I'll trim off any excess and then press down any little loose bit that there might be. Okay, so you're at the next point that you could stop if you wanted. You've got a little bead that dangles inside the dangling heart, and that's kind of sweet, but we're not going to stop there. Well, you can if you want. No, I'm going to add some more. So I'm going to get a little bit more of the fine wire, another couple of inches. Probably got, I don't know, 6 inches here. And I'm just going to wrap around the top of the frame of the heart. Now if you don't want to go around the top, that's fine, you could put them somewhere else. And I'm going to wrap round maybe 3 times, 4 times, just enough to secure the wire so that it's not going to go anywhere. There we go. Make sure that they're all nice and tight together and looking neat. Now I'm going to add a bead to the fine wire when I find the hole. That's it. Slide it down there. It makes me feel really Christmassy doing this one, I don't know why. Alright, and then just holding it in place underneath the wire on the inside of the heart, I'm going to start and wrap around. So I'm going to wrap around 3 times. There we go. Let's have a look. Now I suppose at that point you could also stop if you wanted, But I really do like my, sort of little clusters and groups and odd numbers. So I'm going to do 3 beads. There we go. Now actually this looks really, really attractive if you do more. If you cut one whole side with beads just going down the inside. That looks really lovely, but I'm sure you can, you can do that if you want. Add your own little touches. That's one of the wonderful things about wire jewellery, isn't it? That everybody adds their own little touches and each piece ends up being unique and special. So that's my 3rd bead. Let's just get that in there, in the corner. And I'll wrap round probably more than the 3 times now because I'm going to be finishing it off. So that's the 3. Yeah, I think that's enough. I like that. 3 little beads over the top, 1 in the dangle. Yeah. Like I say, you could go all the way around, but I'm just going to wrap around another couple of times. That one's 4. And then just snip that off at the back and smooth any sort of loose bit down onto the framework. Now if I just slide that out so that I can get to that end bit there, okay, I can just wrap it round a little more, trim off the loose bit, then put the pliers over the top and press it down. Make sure they're all together and smooth it down to the piece. Now I can just slide those back up and then there we go. Look at that, it don't want to sit on the floor now, does it? Silly thing. It does not want to be down there. I'll tell you what, I'll hold it in my hand and you can have a look. No. No, it's that bead at the bottom, it's got the wrong way around. See, the minute I hold it, it's absolutely fine. It just did not want to sit. Didn't want to be put down. So I've got you a couple of pictures, so you can see some close-ups. I'm sure yours will be equally lovely, if not better. And if you're doing them for presents, I'm sure whoever gets some will be delighted. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Happy wrapping!